A Russian blogger claims that the OM Systems Olympus OM-1 is nothing but a Sony camera with OM Systems badging and nothing else. Everything from the circuit board to the menu system and the software is 100% Sony. Before I cover the Russian blogger's claims, I encourage you to click subscribe and choose all notifications, so that way you're in the know of the latest camera news and rumors. The Russian blogger makes some pretty bold statements, such as the sensor is made by Sony, as is the processor and the entire motherboard. In fact, on the processor, you can find the X from Sony. So that's pretty bold, but what else? The EVF is also from Sony, and the battery, the weight, the size, the dimensions, everything about the battery says that this is also a Sony battery. And the Sony menu system has also been replicated function for function, capability for capability. It's the exact same operating system. Of course, the colors are different, the mood board is different, and it's of course using the OM Systems badging, but essentially the menu system for the camera is the same as found in the Alpha 1, the A7S III, and the A7 IV. And even the PC branded software, well, it's also coming directly from Sony. So pretty much the entire camera is made by Sony. Is it just a rebranded Sony A7 IV or an A7S III with some components removed or some capabilities dialed down? Well, does it really matter? First of all, I think it's important to have a bit of a reality check. The OM Systems OM-1 is a really incredible camera. I covered this camera in depth back in January and February, and it is a very different camera to what Sony has out there. It's a stills focused camera. It's not focused on video, while it does have some really good video capabilities, and it's a camera that's designed to operate in all climates and in all environments, getting you that shot. And it's also a Micro Four Thirds camera, but also this camera clearly has OM design technologies or patented technologies in this camera. The OM-1 is a unique camera. It doesn't appear to operate and function or deliver capabilities in the same way as any Sony camera, whether it be an Alpha 1, an A7S III, an A7R4, the A7 IV. And all those claims made by the Russian blogger, well, there's plenty of counter arguments in the forums discussing this. So why am I bringing this up? Why does it matter? Who cares? Well, really, you shouldn't care, and this is really a fluff piece. It really doesn't matter. If you own the OM-1, or if you're looking at getting the OM-1, you're looking at doing it because of certain capabilities. I could take my Canon R5 apart, and I can guarantee you I'm going to find components that aren't made by Canon, and quite a lot of them. Canon does design the processor and the sensor. Wouldn't be surprised if I found Sony parts in there. In fact, I bet you if I took apart a Sony camera, I'd also find components not made by Sony. And let's look at Apple. I've got one of their products right here, their laptops. They don't even produce their own chips. They design them, but they're not produced by Apple. So does it make it inferior because they don't produce it? No, I think this is all silliness. What we need to focus on is, what are the capabilities of this camera? How does it differ from other cameras out there? And if you own an Olympus camera, before it was bought by JIP, that shouldn't matter. If you like the capabilities of this camera, and there are many to look at, from the autofocus system to how it functions in many different environments, to its lightweight, to its portability, Sony doesn't offer a camera. While they make Micro Four Thirds sensors, they don't offer a camera that's Micro Four Thirds. And there's just something about that Micro Four Thirds look and feel, how those cameras feel in your hands and the capabilities that they produce. And look at the OM technologies, such as how they approach IBIS and their drip resistance and other technologies. These are clearly not Sony. I don't doubt that Sony has played a major part in the design, construction, and development of this camera. But that doesn't mean in any way that the OM-1 is anything less than a good camera. So who cares? Who really cares? Well, I certainly don't. If you own the OM-1, you shouldn't care either. If you're looking at buying one, you shouldn't care either. Why does it really matter what's inside? What matters is not the specs of a camera, not who makes the individual components. I mean, that's just absolute silliness. What matters are the actual outcomes, the capabilities, what a particular device, technology, or camera allow us to deliver. What does it do for us? How does it take what's inside our mind, a vision through our mind's eye, and how do we take that and be able to put it in front of you using camera, computers, editing software? How does that impact the vision in our mind to our customers, to our clients, to our family? And I think that's what matters time and time again, because if we get lost looking at the specifications, we might think, oh yes, I want a camera that does 8K video or 4K video or 1080p video. But that in itself doesn't mean we're going to get high quality, high detailed 1080p or 4K or 8K. When we're looking at outcomes, we need to carefully think of what it is we're looking for in a camera. So for example, even 1080, a huge majority of people are still shooting 1080. But there's a difference. You can get a low-end camera that produces 1080, but if you move it, there's a lot of ghosting or rolling shutter. Whereas if you get a higher quality camera, you can spend $10,000 on a camera that just does 1080, but it might have a 4K sensor in there that does 4K oversample 1080, producing a really sharp and detailed image or video. And that video is super detailed. And that video is super sharp. It doesn't suffer from any rolling shutter. The quality is so much better. The detail is so much better. In fact, the Canon C100 has a 4K sensor that only produces 1080p. And if you look at that 1080p video and you compare it to some 4K cameras, well, that 1080p video has more sharpness and more detail. So again, it's the outcomes that matter. We shouldn't focus on specifications, and let alone focus on who makes the components within the camera that we buy. With globalization, there is no one product that has parts only from that company, only made in that country, and not with any third-party contractors. Apple products are a perfect example of how everything is designed by one company. They design their own processors, and their processors are systems on a chip. And while they design everything, they don't fabricate their own stuff. That is outsourced to other companies like TSMC. The components inside the camera shouldn't matter. This is an interesting discussion, and it's fun. It's interesting to speculate how much of a particular camera is made by another company, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in any way whatsoever. And if you like this video, do me a favor, go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, be sure to choose all notifications if you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. I'm always publishing stories, even at a time like this in March and April, where there's very little news, very little context or substance out there. I thought this piece this morning about OM systems was an interesting piece to talk about, and so here we are. But I'm also looking to cover the Canon R7 when we hear more about it, the R1, more Sony cameras coming out. But don't forget to subscribe and choose all notifications so you don't miss anything. And now for a bit of behind the scenes. I've been having problems with the autofocus system on the Canon R5 over the last couple of days. Well, actually, it started yesterday. It was pulsating like an early Panasonic GH5, and it would be fine for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden it would start pulsing for no apparent reason. I did have this happen once before, and that is when the Canon EOS R5 was placed a little bit too far away from me, somewhere around 6 or 7 feet, and I found that it would pulse quite a bit. So I adjusted the camera, and that solved that problem. Now, yesterday, I did notice that the switch on the lens from full to or 0.8 to infinity had been changed, and I put it back to full, which is where I used to have it. And it improved it dramatically, but I still started to get some pulsing. So today, I've made another change, and I've moved this desk about 4 inches closer to the camera. So if it is related to the distance, then we shouldn't see any pulsing at all in this video. And even though I've got a Ninja 5 monitor on top, it's so far away that I can't really tell if it is pulsing. And because I'm looking directly to you through the camera lens, I'm not really seeing it. It's more or less in my peripheral vision. So hopefully I'm not having any issues here. But if while editing this video, I notice it's pulsing, I'm going to be making a call to Canon to ask why all of a sudden am I having this issue? The same camera, the same lens, and because I'm using one of the custom modes, C2, nothing has changed over the last year. The settings are identical. In fact, when I came in from outside and I started shooting back in the studio again with my new design, the settings haven't changed from that very date. So I know it's not a settings issue, unless, of course, there's something on the outside of the camera, like that lens switch, that might have caused some issue. And firmware updates? Well, I didn't do a firmware update yesterday, so I'm really curious. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because the last thing I want to do is send this in for repair, because that means I'm without a camera. And you know what that means. Some big news will come out, and I've got nothing but the iPhone to cover it with. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.